We're continuing on with celebrating the things that stay the same, but I wanted to share a few beautiful flowers I've seen this week before we go into talking about this week's topic, beloved books like Persuasion and The Hobbit. And these are the Mitford series. These are the books that we come back to over and over. So I'm going to talk about my favorites. We're going to paint some bookmarks inspired by the Lupines. I would certainly love to know what your favorite books are that you come back to. The ones that don't change, and every time you pick them up, they're just as good as they were before. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Creative Season, celebrating the things that don't change. And this week we are talking about some of the books that are beloved favorites of mine, and probably some of these titles you'll recognize as well. I would certainly love to know which books are your favorites that you return to as a comfort book throughout your life, and it just seems to get better with age. I thought today as we talk through this, we're going to create some bookmarks. It's a wonderful time of year to make some bookmarks with our favorite quotes, especially as a school year starts, or maybe you are going to be doing one more read before the summer ends, before the fall starts. This is the perfect time to do it. If you don't know this book is by Julie Andrews Edwards, and this, of course, Mary Poppins, Julie Andrews, and her book Mandy. She's written several books, but I love this book. In fact, I'm going to restart it, and I will often just take a piece of paper and write out quotes as I'm going through books. And so one of the books I don't have a picture of is Anne of Green Gables, because somehow I have misplaced my copy, I guess, in one move or another. So that is a book I'm going to have to add to my collection. So let's talk about bookmarks and our favorite books and how we can incorporate them together with some flowers. We're going to paint lupines today. Lupines are just fun to paint, and they're long flowers. They kind of go in curves. Sometimes they go just straight up, so it's really fun to paint these and on unusual pieces of paper. So I have cut up a piece of paper today. It was a 6x9, but maybe you have just scraps of paper that you have had just odd shapes that would be great for bookmarks. And so I encourage you to pull those out. I've got all different sizes, and so we're going to just start painting and doing some sketching. Now, one of these, I just did a little mountain. I already wrote the quote on here, and this is from The Hobbit. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. So I have some mountains, but I'm going to still use our same colors today. We're going to have a similar color palette. And on a couple of these, I will add the quotes after it all dries. So you can decide what you want to do. And we won't paint all of these together, but enough for you to get an idea. And then maybe just launch out on your own. These make fun gifts. Maybe you have friends or who are going back to school, or children or grandchildren, to create a bookmark for them. Put a quote on it that you think will inspire them. Write a note on the back, and great to stick in their lunch, send in the mail, etc. So let's go ahead and do I already sketched this guy, just mountains, a couple of birds, a path. Very easy, but the lupines, again, pretty easy. I'm not going to do too much of a sketch, just a little bit. And I'll show you on this fatter piece of paper here, the wider piece, I can really go ahead and do a little bit more of the full flower. Now, we won't have as much room, and so with the lupines, they come out, all those sweet little flowers, kind of umbrella at the bottom. So down here, I'll kind of start out here. I will usually they often have almost some of the varieties, not all of the varieties, have like this protective, not stem, leaf, and then you have your stem down here. Make sure you can come down and see this. And then they're usually pretty leafy though, and so their leaves all come out with those nice points at the end. I remember running into a big field of them in Lake Tahoe years ago, and just beautiful to see. But the flowers themselves are just almost a plethora of tiny flowers, and they are tons and tons at the base, and then it gets narrower and narrower as you go up. So when I sketch, I usually take my pen and I'm almost just doing elongated circles to represent all those beautiful, and I'll do a little bit more of a stem, all those beautiful darling flowers. So I'm just going to go up like this, and that is about it. And it's very simple, which we love, right? We're creating in the margins, and I'm just going to do one. And on this one, I have a quote from Anne Shirley: "Kindred spirits are not so scarce as I used to think." I love that quote, and I'm going to send this one to a good friend of mine who loves Anne of Green Gables. Even decorated her daughter's room an Anne of Green Gables theme. It is so cute. Now on these longer ones, if you have like you've been cutting paper and you have like a couple of long strips, we back this up just a little bit. So I haven't put the quote on here yet. I'll end up adding it on after. Got to pull it back a little bit. So on this one, what I will do is once again, and I'll start with my stem, but you can see what's going to happen is that we're going to run out of space, which I think is actually kind of fun. So I've got my stem here. And so what you'll do with this one, you'll notice we are not taping this down today. We are just not going to get that much paint, and if it buckles a little bit, so be it, but we do need to use all of the paper. We're going to kind of fill it up with color. And so then I'm just going to start once again those beautiful petals, and it's gonna kind of run off the page here, and then I'll kind of come in closer so you can actually see what I'm sketching here, and I'll just move it down. I'm gonna have another stem coming out here, and we're mostly gonna do this in color, so I'm not trying to create a super detailed sketch. And so once again, I am just going to keep doing these, and honestly I actually need to make these wider, so they're going to go off that side too, because what I want to do is on this one I almost want to create on some of them the greenery. It like doesn't quite open up at the top, kind of like a snapdragon. So you can see up here at the top, I'm just going to do, these will be green, it'll be the blooms that are not bloomed yet, and then I hope this should work. Again, this is just fun creating. Yeah, this will work out nice. They're kind of going off to the side as the lupines do. And you can see my circles, they're really more of elongated ovals, and I'm not making them super neat because actually the petals, the little flowers, aren't perfect. So sometimes I'll even do a 3D shape, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so there we go. There we have a couple of paintings here. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move through these fairly fast. I think on this one I'm actually going to do a background, so I'm going to start with this guy because we want to let it dry before we do the actual flower. So I think for the background I am going to create what background do I want to paint today? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a light lavender, because we'll do, I think I'm going to just do a super light lavender. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do a wash. I'll come in a little bit closer. So, and then I'll just move it up, and you're going to see I'm going to just kind of go around all of the petals. I'm just going to add water to my paint. And this lavender is, it is blue and pink. It's a rose pink. And I mixed it with the phthalo blue. And so phthalo blue is a little bit of a cooler blue, which I just love. And then I think what I'll do is I'm going to make the flower itself a really bold, a really bold purple. And so I'll add more color into it. But again, just moving it down, really just nice and rhythmic. All the way down here in between. I'm not trying to be super perfect. And then coming on down. So it was really fun for me to look through as I was thinking about this theme and pulling out some books. I've been listening to The Hobbit on audio, and I realized that The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are not everyone's favorite cup of tea. And I will say, if you ever wanted to though, and you have just having trouble getting into it, I'd start with The Hobbit and I would listen to the version, even try listening to it. Andy Serkis does a phenomenal job narrating it, and of course his voices are great. Of course, Gollum, which he played in the movies, is just spot on. But he has just an amazing ability to create a different voice for each character that actually sounds like some of the other actors who played the parts in the movies, which I think is really, really interesting. Okay, I'm going to put this one aside. But I think what I love about some of these books is that they're very, very readable. And maybe that's why I go back to them again and again. Now, The Hobbit was made for children, so it is more readable. The Lord of the Rings is can be a bit heavy. But then, the Jan Karan, I think those books are lovely. I was very much late to that bandwagon of Mitford series. It's just a wonderful comfort series. So for this one, I'm going to start with green, and we're going to make these blue lupines. And so I am going to use that phthalo blue. But the Mitford series is just fun. I want to restart them. I don't know if I'll go through all of them. I don't think I ever got to I think there's a Christmas one. Or there's like an add-on, which I never read the Christmas book, I don't think, but I've read the original series. And you do just fall in love with all the characters. Taking a sip of tea there really quick. It has been cooled off a little bit, but the humidity is just brutal. Really brutal, but autumn comes, right? And there's something about summer. I'm not crazy about the weather, but summer is such a special time of year. Feels like everything is just a little bit slower. Even gatherings seem a little bit calmer. I spent the last week, actually it was about 10 days in California, and just seeing so many friends and family. It was just wonderful, and it felt not rushed. Like it was just a time just to linger, and had shared meals and coffee, and I felt like I drove all over California, the central part, even did get to go to the ocean for a day. So that was really nice. If you're familiar with California, it's a huge state. I did not go to Southern California. All of my people, so to speak, are mostly in Northern and Central California. And so that was wonderful. Okay, so you can see with the lupines, so I'm leaving lots of white space in between. And I'm just working my way down. And again, we're kind of operating too that we don't have a ton of time to paint, you know, but 20 minutes or so that we can create a couple of really fun bookmarks and think about our favorite books. So the Mitford series is a fun one. We mentioned Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Little House on the Prairie. I read and reread that series so many times when I was growing up in my childhood, and then even into my younger adolescent years. I just loved it, and I'm thinking it's time to revisit that series. I really love going back and reading books from my childhood every once in a while. It's something about, you know, those books that you know are going to be good. And not all books are wonderful. Even there's many books I will read once, but probably not read again. But I love having a stack of favorites that are always comforting, stimulating to go back and read. And just, so this is, I'm using a hooker's green right now, and we're just moving through these leaves. I'm going to add a little bit of blue when I come back in to add some shadow to the leaves, because that blue is just going to darken it up. And what I'm going to do is I will mix it on the palette, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So again, let me know what your favorite books are. If there's a book that you, every couple of years, you go back to it, or every time you pick it up, it's just a return to comfort, or return, again, that a bit of an adventure. I forgot all about the All of a Kind family, and I had loved those. And it was, of course, unpacking. I'm like, oh, I love these books. And so rereading those ones as well. I'm just going to add a little stem in the lupines. You'll notice some of them still have some of those leaves just poking out, which I love to create that. So what I'm going to do, what I've done here is, you can see in my blue, my phthalo blue there, I just have some green and mixing it up. And so it's a nice dark blue-green. And I'll come back over here now. And I'm just going to even just dab it in, because this paint is still wet. It's just going to do its dance, which we love. And then I am going to go ahead and do some splattering and pick up some of that blue, since we're not going to do a background on this one. And that was just 2 colors that we used. So super pretty. Okay, and that one is really probably just about done. I might come in and add a little bit more. I might add a little bit more of the blue, but that was just about done. We're about 13 minutes in, so I still have a couple of minutes left before we hit our 20-minute mark. So why don't I go through? I'm going to pick up this one, the mountain one. Now I'm still going to use the same colors, so I'm going to use my blue. And we'll get a nice blue sky, and I'm just going to pick up some more water, and I'll come in closer so you can see that. This is just a tiny painting. Sometimes it's fun to do little landscape paintings. I really love them. And if we wanted to take the time, you could certainly, you could create a beautiful, like, fields of flowers. That you could absolutely do. It would take a little bit of time, but it would be really fun and a great way if you're just wanting to relax for an evening, or maybe you're just watching a movie or watching something with someone that you're not terribly interested in, but you want to be with that person. You can pull out your painting and still enjoy the togetherness time, but paint a little bit as well. So you can see too that the blue is not even. I let it kind of go in different heaviness, if that's the right word for it. So you can almost see the sky. Often, sometimes we have a perfectly blue sky, but a lot of times the clouds are just different changes in color. So I just like to let that be very imperfect. And so what I'm going to do now is I will pick up a bit of brown from my path, and it's always wider the nearer it is to us. So I've got it wide here. And then I realized, I thought, oh, I was already making it kind of small, so I tried to make it super small all the way back there. And you don't need to paint it all in if you don't want to. I'm going to add just a little bit of a darker brown. That was a burnt sienna, and then add a little bit of raw umber. And then for the mountains, you could, what it would look like if you wanted to make a field of lupines like I had seen, you could certainly do that. You could do a light green first, and then do a bunch of purple over it. Or you can, I mean, we could just do that all over the place. That might get, I think for our time today, I may not be able to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just create beautiful purple, a purple edge up here. I'm going to leave those guys and just do a bunch of tiny ones here, as if it is just a field of flowers. And then I'm going to pick up a green and just move this around and create a beautiful green hills. You'll notice if you, sometimes you'll look up at the hills, if you're passing by a mountain, it is like a purple edge on top. So again, I'm going to grab more green. It's a little bit watery. Try not to let it blend into your sky if that's possible. And I'm just going to kind of let it blend in. Now, sometimes the risk when we write in our quote first is it might blend a little bit, but it's not going to, or blur that writing, but not too much. And remember, watercolor always dries lighter than when you set it on. So I'm just going to go right over the quote. I'm going to come right up here and move here, and then I'm going to leave my purple, do another green path up here, or green mountain. We're just going to pretend these are mountains, not in California, because I have to tell you, everything in California is brown. So maybe these are up in upstate New York, or where you are perhaps, where there's rain throughout the year, and everything is still green. I'm going to take a little bit of purple, and I am just going to dot some purple up high, up on my top of my mountain. And that can be a great way to add some shadowing as well, and over on this mountain as well. Again, we're not trying to make masterpieces of art here, but this is super cute. And I had spelled Gandalf wrong, and so I had to course correct that. So, okay, I love that. Now, one thing I am going to do is, because I have the blue in the sky, I want blue somewhere else on this painting so it kind of sings a little bit more. So I'm going to pick up some blue, and down here where there's the purple flowers, I'm just going to add in some blue ones too. And again, we're just doing dots as if they're just all over this road, or all around the road, I should say. And it's going to blur a little bit, and that's okay. That is perfectly and completely okay. We've done our cute little landscape there. And we're doing really good on time. I love it when you can create lots of fun art in like 20 minutes, which is just wild, right? Now we're going to come back over here, and so let's start out with our green, and this guy is long. So even though I have him close up, or I have the camera close up, I'm going to move it down so you can see what I'm doing. So on this, I'm going to just take this green, and if you notice, we're using colors that are super complementary. We are not using any pinks today, where you have pink and green. You know that turns into brown. Other colors can just be problematic when they play together. They don't play together. So we are using colors that play together a little bit nicely. little bit nicer. The purple does have some pink in it, but it has blue in it as well, so it's not like a straight pink that can go problematic if green touches it. And really, the green is not going to do too much touching of this one. All right, so you can see my palette's a bit of a mess. I'm gonna need to rinse it, but that's okay. That's what palettes are for. I've got my blue, I had my pink right here. You can see in the other corner, I was making some orange, but I am just gonna mix and mix and mix until I have a really nice bold purple like that. You could always dab it on a little spot, but I think I can tell that's a very nice color. And these are fun. I'm not too worried if it was a little bit off. And that looks really pretty. It's darker, which I wanted, than the original color, which I just added a lot more water to. So it faded a bit. And once again, I'm just moving around all my petals. You'll notice too, we are leaving a lot of white because we want that magic of the sun. It looks like the sun's kind of bouncing off of them and they don't fall flat on the page. So just kind of outlining them almost as if we were using like pens. That's why I really, really enjoy the round tip brush, this guy, because you can just they're so versatile. But you can do nice angles and fine tip things with your brush. And I need to do another green leaf here. So I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna do that in just a minute. Funny how easy it is to miss things. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here, just traveling upwards, mixing a little bit more paint together if you need to. And if you wanted to add, let's just say you're like, gosh, it's a little too pinky for me. You could always just come back and add a little bit more blue, or even go mix your brush in the blue, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that's pretty blue. So then what I'll do is I'll take some of the purple mixture and then just move that around. And you can see that definitely creates a darker color. If it's too dark, you can just dab it with like a paper towel or a soft cloth or a dry brush. I could even take this dry brush and I could say, gosh, that's a little bit too much blue, and just sop it up. And then I'll just go over it with the purple again. I don't always make my own purple. I'll use the dioxazine purple sometimes, but purple is one of those colors where if I'm using blue somewhere else in the painting especially, oh, that's supposed to be green up there, I like to make my own. And you can make it more mauve-y, more pink, etc. I'm going to get a little bit more blue in it. Oh, and I've just lost some of the sun. The sun finally came out. It really hasn't come out since I've been back in New York. So it was great today to see it come out for recording day. Okay, I'm gonna grab some green, but it's shifting. It's shifting in shadow. So the lupines, some of them on top, if they haven't bloomed yet, you'll see the green stalks up here. And then I've got this leaf down here. So I like that too with the green on top, especially in our bookmark. It really sets the whole thing together. And let me actually back this up so you can see the whole thing. And that way we can still write our quote around here. Isn't that fun? Now you might want to let it dry, and then you could even go back over with your micron pen and add in some more detail, do another layer of paint. You may want to do the same with this one, but you don't have to. And we created three very different bookmarks, but we use basically the same colors. You might have a certain style that you really love and you want to do a couple just in that same style. Add in your quotes, and definitely let me know in the comments your favorite book that you return to over and over again. I will see you next time. Thanks for painting with me.